Hey guys, so this is a summary of the JMT trip, the John Muir Trail that we did from August 11th to August 30th. I'm Samir Palnitkar, and a lot of the credit for the contents of the presentation goes to Rawat, my friend, who was one of the co-hikers on the trip. But I thought I would reuse some of his material because it was so cool. So let's jump right in. Let's first take a look at the interesting backpacking trips in the United States and see what are the kinds of trips that actually are done. So we actually did the 211-mile John Muir Trail, but actually that's one of the smaller backpacking trips. I mean, we thought we were doing a huge deal, but people do the Appalachian Trail on the East Coast, which is about 2,100 miles, goes from Georgia to Maine. And on the West Coast, it's really the Pacific Crest Trail, which is 2,600 miles and 4,200 kilometers. So that both of these take about 6 months to do. But again, very cool trails. And the John Muir Trail shares a lot of the common trail with the Pacific Crest Trail. So let's look at the planning that we did for the John Muir Trail. The first thing was the training. It took us about 4 months of training. So we started, the trip was supposed to start on August 11th. So we pretty much started around April, and we started training heavily. Used to be 4 days a week training. The way I and Anu used to do it was Wednesday we used to train with a short about 6-kilometer hike, but always with a 40-pound weight. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday we used to do back-to-back, where we used to do 12, 18, and 18 kilometers. So that's kind of how we did it for the most part. When we also visited the US, we trained with Anu's sister-in-law, Meenal, in Virginia. So we did the Harper's Ferry and a bunch of stuff like that. So most of the training Anu and I did was in India and a little bit in the US. Food was kind of the biggest challenge. I mean, the amount of planning it took for food was incredible because we were not sure what our calorie counts would be. I mean, the blog seemed to say that we would be burning 3,000 to 4,000 calories and we would need 3,000 calories per day. But again, our normal appetites are lower, so we don't eat between 1,500 to 2,000 calories per day. So a lot of the planning happened, and that was really important. The third thing was the gear. I mean, there was a lot of gear to buy because we had to carry our entire world with us, and that was really, really important. So right from the backpack to sleeping bags, sleeping pads, what kind of shoes, sandals, and we had to spend a little more to ensure that the weight was cut down to a minimum. I mean, the base weight, excluding water and food, was about 26, 27 pounds, which is about 12 kilos. You add about 2.5 liters of water, that's about 2.5 kilos. So again, we used to carry that much initially, then we cut it down to 1.5 liters of water, which is about 3.5 pounds. And food adds another 1 to 1.5 pounds per day, depending on how much you consume. We try to keep it as close to 1 pound for us, but other people pack 1.5 pounds of food. So the total weight, I mean, 27 pounds plus the food plus the water used to be between 40 and 45 pounds, which is about 20 kilos. So, I mean, weight was one of the most important. For itinerary and navigation, a lot of credit to Ankur Zindal, who was one of the co-hikers. I mean, he really planned the day-by-day itinerary, but he also used an app called Gut Hook, GUTHOOK, and that is a crowdsourced app that explains what are the campgrounds, whether there's water, what kind of campground it is it flat, how many tents you can pitch and stuff like that. So you get a lot of this material from that. That was the itinerary and navigation piece. And then during emergencies, we were using a satellite phone mainly for texting. So that's what we did, and we used to send out a daily summary at the end of the day to one of our friends, and then he used to send it on to a WhatsApp group, and we had sent that WhatsApp group for open invitation. Anybody who wanted to track our hike, that person used to broadcast the message saying, hey, this is when we started, or this is the daily summary for the day that was ended. So that's what was used. And then we had the Garmin 1 month plan, which allowed unlimited messaging using the satellite. So it was about like $350. So that's what it was. And then the team itself, I mean, the team, we had me, Samir, who's on the left, then Meenal, who lives in Virginia, and that's Anu's sister-in-law, then Anu, my wife, then Rawat, who lives in the Bay Area, Ankur, Zindal, who lives in the Bay Area and is a friend of Jay. Arun Kumar is from Seattle, and Ashutosh Chauhan is from the Bay Area. So we had a combination, 2 people from India, the rest from the US, 7 people started. Arun had to leave after the 6th day because he had to attend to his wife for a medical emergency, but that's kind of what he had to do. And then the expenses were important because there were a lot of expenses, and we had to keep track of all of it and make sure that we were, because the food itself, the cost of the food was not that much, but the cost of transporting the food was a lot. And that's kind of what we had to do. So this was kind of a summary of the trek. So the question always is, hey, why do it? I mean, for me and Anu, we love it because both of us do it and we really enjoy it. She is much stronger than me. But I mean, at this point, life is about gaining new experiences, something new to do, something interesting that we have never seen or experienced before. Also, for the 2 of us, it's like spending quality time together. So we didn't, on the entire trek, I mean, we could spend a lot of time together when we reached the camp. And we were also disconnected from the world in the sense that we were not really calling anybody, we were not texting anybody. And since both of us were on the trek, we could just talk to each other. So that's how it worked. And we saw some amazing sights. Those were reasons enough for us to do the trek. So let's talk about JMT, the John Muir Trail. So firstly, the John Muir Trail is known after John Muir, one of the famous explorers who kind of was born in the late 1800s. And he did a lot of exploring in the region, and he also suggested and lobbied for a trail in that region in the Sierra Nevadas, resulting in the John Muir Trail being constructed starting from 1915 to about 1938 when it was complete. But what is amazing at that time, and the number of people in California were so less, they had already reserved some of these spaces as national parks or national forests. And on top of it, they had the vision to build a trail for recreation purposes that people could use to explore the beauty of the region. And that is the exciting part of it. So let's take a look at the John Muir Trail. Let's turn our attention to the right. So it starts at the Happy Isles Center near Curry Village in Yosemite Park. And it goes through Yosemite Park, then Ansel Adams Wilderness, then John Muir Wilderness. It enters the Kings Canyon National Park. The Ansel Adams Wilderness and John Muir Wilderness, they are part of the Inyo National Forest. Then it goes into Kings Canyon, where the sites become incredible, the peaks become taller, and it ends in Sequoia National Park at Mount Whitney. So Whitney is in the Sequoia National Park, the western slope, the eastern slope is in the Inyo National Forest. So it's really weird. So this part which you see, the John Muir Wilderness, so it goes through some of the most beautiful regions of the Sierra Nevadas. And it's again 211 miles of the actual trail, but we added Half Dome on the first day. That added about 7 miles. And after you finish Mount Whitney, there is another 11 miles down, which is not counted as a part of the John Muir Trail. So that, in all, it comes to about 230 miles, which is 370 kilometers. The next thing to look at is the elevation profile. So John Muir Trail, the elevation profile is incredible. You start about 4,000 feet. And compared to like a Himalayan trek, it may not seem like a lot, like 14,505, but you're going from 4,000 to 14,000, and there is almost no flat land. You're pretty much either climbing or descending. That's it. And we did 11 passes in these 20 days. I mean, most of them, if you notice, 10 of them are about 10,000 feet. So you're dealing with high altitude. And once you go up, it kind of comes down straight. So there were very few flat patches where we could just take it easy and walk at a brisk pace. It was either a brutal climb or a brutal descent where your knees are getting hammered. So that's kind of what the John Muir Trail, but it's so cool, and the scenery is so amazing, and it was a lot more challenging than we had expected. So that is we did a lot of training with the backpack with 45, 47 pounds on our back, but that's not enough. Once you go there, you realize that it's indeed a tough hike, and something that will surprise you in many ways. So that was JMT. Quick stats from our JMT track. The duration was 20 days. The distance was 230 miles, 370. The actual distance of the trail is 211, as I said, and we added about 18, 19 miles beyond that. The elevation gain, as I said, we climbed about 50,000 feet and descended about 46,000 feet. And that's quite incredible. It's like climbing 1.7 times the height of Mount Everest from sea level. So that is an incredible amount of climbing. And if you look at the daily stats, it is like doing a half marathon every day with a 2,500 feet climb and 2,300 foot of descent at 10,000 plus feet elevations, altitudes, with a 40-pound backpack on your back, and you're burning 3,000 to 4,000 calories every day. That's the kind of brutal JMT trek that it was. So again, very challenging, but also very cool. And this was the proof of our completion. 6 of us, from the left, it was me, Samir, Meenal, then Anu, Ashutosh, Jay, and Ankur. As I said, the most experienced hiker, Arun, had to leave after 6 days due to a family requirement, but he was the strongest hiker in the group, and we were really sad to miss him. But this was the top of Mount Whitney on day 20, and incredible views. We saw the sunrise. It was fantastic. So we reached the top around 6 o'clock in the morning, started at about 1:40 a.m., reached at 6 o'clock, got some incredible views, and it was really a culmination of our experience. So let's look at the team. As I said, we had Samir, me, Meenal, Anu, my wife, and again, she is a much stronger hiker than me. Jay from the Bay Area, Ankur from the Bay Area. And this was when we were just fresh starting out, and you will see how we looked on Mount Whitney without bathing for about 14 days. We had one bathing point in the middle, but no bath, no deodorant. So quite a stark difference. And then we had Arun Kumar, one of the strongest hikers in the group, but again, he had to leave after the 6th day, and Ashutosh. So those were the team members. Again, 3 of them from the Bay Area, Arun from Seattle, Anu and I from India, and Meenal from Virginia. So that was what it was. We saw some incredible landscapes. I mean, this was one of the pictures on the way to Half Dome. When we were going up Half Dome again, this is the kind of cables. It's a 45 to 60 degree incline. So the last part, you actually have to go up these the steel cables, and you see these little people right here. They're perched up trying to climb. So even the climb down can be scary for a few people, but if it's not raining, the grip is pretty good. And if you're not afraid of heights, then there are wooden boards so you can stand in during the climb up. But it's an incredible sight. You see all of Yosemite, and it's an incredible sight at the top of Half Dome. But the landscape, I mean, with California fires, they're very unfortunate. They burn up a lot of the forest, but sometimes there is also beauty in those fires. As you can see here that these are burnt forests. I mean, they're completely burned, but the beauty is quite serene and incredible. But you also see extremely lush green trees and meadows and limitless, intimidating mountains. I mean, you look, the mountains are Sierra Nevadas, you can see as far as your eye can see. You just see peaks and valleys. So that is so cool. And you, of course, see beautiful meadows like Sunrise Meadows or Tuolumne, and incredible scenery. And of course, one of the highlights of the John Muir Trail is the incredible alpine lakes. Every point that we went to, especially most of the latter part of our trek, was about 10,000 feet. We saw these incredible alpine lakes with beautiful reflections that we could see on those lakes. I mean, look at some of these reflections. The first one is what is called Shadow Lake. But these are picture perfect reflections. And this is the kind of scenery you see on the John Muir Trail. So that is what is really exciting about it. So it's all about peaks and lakes. And I do admit that at the 17th, 18th day, I've seen so many lakes that have been there, done that. But when you come back and reflect and reminisce on the experience, I mean, these are lakes like you've never seen before with pure, pristine water and scenery. It was just incredible. And of course, we had plenty of time to reflect ourselves, just hear your inner voice, think about life in general, think about new perspectives in some of the most incredible, serene, quiet landscapes that you have ever seen. And of course, this is a photo of Devil's Postpile. It's an unusual stone formation, completely natural that you see. It's like stone pillars. And this is near the Red Meadows in Mammoth Lakes, California. So if you're interested, this particular monument is accessible by car. So if you go to Mammoth Lakes, California, you can actually access this. So we saw that. And of course, you see some incredible sites like these chutes that are created by these mini avalanches. So you see how these little avalanches create these chutes and incredible formations being created. And of course, unusual was actually the normal. So this was what kind of the trail looked like, with beautiful views and formations like the cloud formation here, or the tree structure, or this is like the roof of the Muir Trail hut, an incredible tree combination, wildflowers, reflections on the water, or sometimes just burnt trees just after Red Meadows. So just incredible scenery experiences. And these are actual pictures we took during the hike. So they're not downloaded from the internet. These are the pictures taken by our team. So this is the experience that we went through. And again, we saw some incredible sunrise, sunsets, and night skies. So this is an example of what we would see in the morning when we started out, sunrise by a stream with beautiful reflections, or the morning rays to kind of light up your path with their golden glow, or some incredible colors at the lakes. You see it, and it's unbelievable what kind of colors nature draws. So these were the kinds of campsites you see. That was our campsite. And this is the kind of stuff that we saw. Of course, we saw glowing peaks as if they were on fire in the morning, and you can see the contrast on the areas which were hit by the sun in the morning versus which weren't, glowing forests and skies, and just mesmerizing sunrises and sunsets. It was pretty incredible. And of course, in the night, we saw the Milky Way. This was taken with a 30-second exposure from a Samsung, but there is no light pollution, so it kind of works. The sights are so beautiful. It was so dark that we could see all these sights and the Milky Way in its full glory. So pretty incredible. One of the fundamental principles of trails like the JMT is that you leave no trace. The trail should never feel as if a human being, or particularly you, have passed by. And therefore, there are certain rules that were explained to us in the beginning, but very honestly, no rangers came and really repeated those rules, but it was so beautiful, so serene, so well kept that we ourselves, everybody follows those rules meticulously. And so first one is camp 100 feet away from water, so no tents near 100 feet. Similarly, if you need to go use the toilet, it has to be at least 100 feet away from the water. You have to store your food properly in bear canisters. And the reason that is done is because you don't really want to have the bears in that whole region getting used to getting food from humans. And if they do, then they start becoming aggressive, start threatening the humans, and they have to be put down by the National Park Service. So for the protection of the bears, you actually have to carry a 3-pound weight bear canister and store all your food, all your cosmetics, with toothpaste, creams, anything that has a good smell inside the bear canister. Plus, you have to carry all your trash to the nearest point where you can actually safely dispose the trash. You're not allowed to throw anything at campsites, on the way, on the trail. And believe me, in the entire 211 miles, we did not see one single piece of paper. That is how incredibly well kept it is by the hikers. Even if you have extra food, you have to bury it. You have to bury and carry your poop, so there can neither be visual contamination or actual trash. And that is the principle on which the entire trail worked. A very new experience for us, not being able to throw the trash, but it worked really well. So this is how the bear canisters were. It's a clear glass or clear plastic that we had. It was about 3 pounds. You put all your stuff in and you keep it about 50 feet away from your tent. And you had to do that meticulously to protect the bears. That was very, very important. We did not actually see much wildlife in terms of the bears. We actually saw one baby bear at Red Meadows, and that was it. On the actual trail, near our campgrounds, we did not see any bears because the ranger had told us that most of these bears are scavengers by nature, so they will not really attack or get aggressive, though there were signs, but that did not actually happen. So we didn't really see much of that. As far as poop was concerned, again, urination or poop has to be done only 100 feet away from water. That was very important. But for poop, you have to dig a cat hole with a trowel, and that has to be like 6 to 8 inches deep. And what we found is below the trees is the softest soil, so you get that. And if you do use toilet paper, you're not allowed to bury the toilet paper, which means you have to carry it back to the nearest trash station, which is oftentimes 5 or 6 days away. So most of us just used water or beaded bottles, and that's just use water. And on the last day, when we went to Whitney, the Whitney region, just the last day, it's a special zone where you're not even allowed to bury your poop. So you have to carry what is called a wag bag. So you poop in it, pack the poop, and there is a special chemical that reduces the smell. and then you actually carried back all the way to Whitney portal. That is the last final point where a car picks up, and that is where you dispose the poop. So again, incredible foresight in keeping that region clean, keeping it usable and pleasant for other trekkers who will follow you. And that was very, very important. So how we lived, we used to wake up between about 4:10 to 4:30 while it was still dark, use our lamps, and we had to brush, poop, urinate, whatever, drink water, cook breakfast, eat the breakfast, then cook lunch and carry the lunch with us, pack our tents, pack our bags, and do all this. And we used to manage to do it in about 1 hour, 45 minutes. So we started at around between 6 and 6:30 while it was still dark. And this was the kind of stove that we used. We had pretty much jet boil stoves. So this is the container, and this is the what you see at the bottom is the gas, the fuel canister. And you just kind of screw it on and light it, and it boils water within a minute. We carried mostly dehydrated food, so we used to just add water to it and eat it. And we had typically breakfast at the campsite, lunch on the way. So we used to carry it in a small steel mug and just eat it on the way. And we never had time to eat hot lunches on the way because it consumes too much time. And then we used to have dinner at the campsite. So that's typically how it worked. And then, and to again reiterate, these stoves are actually, the container is very light. So for our jet boil, it was less than a pound, including everything. And the gas canister is about 220 grams, so it's about half a pound when it's full. And one gas canister typically lasted us about 3 to 4 days for 3 people. So about about 12 meals for 3 people. So about 36 meals is what one canister lasted us. So again, it depends on how much you boil. I mean, I normally don't have tea or coffee, so it didn't really matter. But it again depends if you're consuming more. So you look at the number of boils and just carry a little more than you think you will have. So we used to hit the trail. I had the routine of actually doing a selfie before we started, just for the fun of it. And then it used to be a long day on the trail. I mean, if you look at how the trail is, it was a very nice, benign trail, very well constructed, not dangerous at any point. If there was a fork in the trail, there was typically signage that showed us what the directions were. So hard to get lost, but yes, I mean, there are very few hikers. I mean, over these 20 days, we probably saw 200 to 300 hikers. That was pretty much it. But that's how the day went. And we used to have brutal climbs, knee-busting, ankle-twisting descents. There was one day when we had thorny bushes for about 4 kilometers, 3 miles, and sometimes inhospitable terrain just made of rock. So very, very interesting experience. But we also had fairy tale paths, incredible streams and waterfalls, some incredible lakes and mountains and valleys. So beautiful. And we used to typically, we took time to enjoy the views, and we used to reach the destination between 2 and 5 p.m. So the walking used to be from about 6 a.m. till about 2 to 5 p.m. And then once we reached camp, we had to pitch our tents, inflate our sleeping pad, lay out our sleeping bags, cook food, filter water. Then we also did kind of soak our feet for recovery, did some stretching, enjoyed dinner. Then 4 o'clock was usually tea time. It's chai o'clock, char is 4. So we just called chai o'clock. We played cards fairly often. I mean, at least 3 to 4 days when we were not tired. And we played games like contact, dumb charades, and so on. So there was a lot of fun as well. when we reached the camp. And what we found is that the time we reached camp between 2 to 5 p.m. Till the next morning, there used to be enough time to recover. So there was no day when in the morning when we started, we were completely exhausted. We were actually quite okay. And the temperatures ranged from like 2 Celsius or about 2 to 3 Celsius, about 40, 42 degrees in the morning, till about 80 to 90 degrees in the day, which is about 30 to 35 Celsius in the afternoon, around 2 to 5. So the time after about 12 o'clock became very unpleasant because of the heat. But before that, 6 to 12 was great. So we used to try and cover as much distance as possible. So that's how it was. And we usually retired and slept between 7 and 8, typically around 7:30 to 7:45. And that left us about 8.5 hours of sleep before we woke up between 4:10 and 4:30. So adequate time to sleep. And we had to retire early because we wanted to get everything done and sleep before it got dark. And it got dark in August around 8:15 p.m. So that was the daily routine. Fun and favorites. I mean, Jay used to do some wacky things like hanging on a bridge at Nevada Falls. This was how we dried our clothes. So we used to pretty much rinse our clothes. I just had 2 pairs. I had, in fact, initially 2 pairs of shirt and 2 pairs of hiking pants. But on the 6th day when Arun was leaving, we also sent the hiking pant. I sent my hiking pants back with him. So pretty much 1 pant throughout the remaining 14 days, and used to basically rinse the clothes in either the lake or the nearest stream, and do it after every 3 or 4 days, and just change your shirt and your underwear. I mean, that's typically, and your socks, of course. I mean, those were the things I used to change. And this is typically how the drying worked. And of course, I actually had a Samsung phone, which I put on airplane mode and the maximum battery saver mode. So I used to only take pictures. So it actually lasted about 10 days, where I could recharge in the middle, and then it again lasted another 10 days. So it was cool. But some of the team members had solar packs, which actually worked very well. And they were able to track their entire trip on the watch. And they also had internet on a couple of places, so they were able to use that, but I did not. And of course, nature's call. When you got to go, you got to go. So it was fun, in fact, doing it together and see who shoots the longest. We also had some incredible passes. There is this Muir hut on top of Muir Pass, which is at 12,000 feet. And again, you might have a harder time recognizing, but from the left are Ankur, Samir, Ashutosh, Anu, Meenal, and Jay. This was Mather Pass, so we also saw a lot of fellow hikers with very interesting stories. I mean, this lady in yellow, she used to live in Mexico and then spend some of the time in the United States. And there was a lady who was about 65 years old, but she was so fast that her speed put us to shame. But incredible people that we saw. This was Glen Pass, and Jay up to his interesting stunts. This was not as dangerous as the picture looks, but the picture is pretty cool. And as you see just below, lakes used to form in any areas which can collect water. So right below the pass, we could see. So Glen Pass was immediately after Ray Lakes. And Forester Pass, this is a 4,000 feet pass. So this was the last pass before we climbed Mount Whitney. So this is our entire team. Again, Ankur, Samir, Jay, Meenal, Ashutosh, and Anu at the top of Forester Pass. So this was on day 18. And this was supposed to be the hardest path with 4,000 feet of climbing and last pass before Mount Whitney. And finally, when we reached Mount Whitney at 14,505, it was incredible exhilaration, incredible feeling to be there. This was an amazing view from Mount Whitney. There's a lot of granite that you see, but it was literally the top of the world in that area, in the Sierra Nevadas. And descending from Mount Whitney, I mean, again, Mount Whitney, we started climbing at about 1:40 a.m., did most of the climbing in the dark, and we couldn't figure out where we were really going. But we reached the peak at around 6 o'clock. The sunrise was at 6:20, so we got some amazing views at sunrise. And then when we descended, we realized the kind of terrain we had come through. So it was almost scary, but it's amazing. It's a tribute to the National Park Service. What an amazing trail they have maintained. And also a big thank you to the rangers for keeping us safe, for the crew for maintaining the trails so well. But we still had to descend the 11 miles to 6,200 feet from 14,500. So almost 6,400 feet descent from the trailhead. So about 8,000 feet descent from the top of Mount Whitney. And we had to do 99 switchbacks on the way back. And it seemed like it would never end. But we had kept our backpacks at the trailhead, from which the Whitney is about 2 miles, about 3.2 kilometers. And then we picked up our backpacks again and then continued on for 11 miles till Whitney Portal, where the cars can actually be parked. So a van picked us up, and then we went to Lone Pine and checked into the Trails Motel. And that is where we actually hung up our boots. So that was how it was. Some notable experiences. This is what the permit looks like. Here it shows, and I guess statistic is only 3% of the people actually get a permit. So the entry date was 11th August. We could finish no later than August 31st. This was for 8 people, but we were only 7 of us, and it was $10 per person for the entire John Muir Trail, which is incredible, given the level of service, the quality of the trails, and the safety provided by the rangers. It was incredible. And we also had the Half Dome and the Donahue Pass permit. We were hungry souls. I mean, this was the only container that we had. And we had spoons with color coding, red, blue, and yellow. This was what the bear canister looked like. And we pretty much used ready-to-eat dried food. So since we were coming from India, we actually brought a lot of the stuff from India. And we used to just put water and eat it. So this was, so we used food from like the Taste Company. We used food from Meal of the Moment, Haldiram. So those were the 3 foods we got from India. Of course, Backpackers Pantry. So Pad Thai from the Backpackers Pantry was actually very popular. Kathmandu curry was very popular. Since Anu and I are vegetarians, so we ate only the vegetarian part of these meals. So it worked out pretty well. We had 4 resupply points. I mean, these were the points at which we could send our food in advance, because we sent food for pickup on the 3rd day, 6th day, 10th day, and the 15th day. So at any point, we did not have more than 5 days of food, which was between 5 to 7 pounds for us. And this was the photo of the Muir Trail Ranch, where we had sent the food. And on the left, you see Jay, Anu, Meenal, Ankur, and Ashutosh sorting through the food, taking out the trash, putting it, combining the food into Ziplocs, so that we don't have the weight of the packaging. This is how we did it. And then we kind of, so the 4 resupply points for us were, the first point was Tuolumne Meadows, where you can mail it into the Tuolumne post office. Then Reds Meadows, Muir Trail Ranch, and then we got a mule resupply, which is kind of expensive. It's $850, but believe me, for tired hikers and not so strong hikers like us, it was worth it. This guy Tom came from the nearest point, I believe it was Onion Valley, over Kearsarge Pass, and he delivered the food to us at Woods Creek on the trail. And that was so welcome because otherwise it would have meant a couple of days extra and about 15 miles extra and 2 pass crossings. So again, Tom's interesting story is his father is a software engineer, his mom is a hardware engineer, and yet he prefers to basically do the mule train. Very interesting person, and somebody we met on the trail. But these were the kinds of experiences, hearing the perspectives of life. This is what made the hike even more interesting. The trail maintenance was amazing. As I said, these are the kinds of machines that are used to maintain the trail by crew, and they are allocated portions of the trail, and this is how it's done. So again, a big thanks to the crew for maintaining the trail so well, keeping it so safe. And the attention to detail was incredible. So in some cases where you had a high step, they usually used to place a small rock next to it, so you could step on that rock before stepping on the higher step. So these little attention, these little kinds of things that were attended to were incredible. There were some really cool bridges, especially over streams that had a lot of water and were not easy to cross. Fun was never missing. There was always kind of something going on after we reached our camp. The campsites were interesting. Some days they were all level and you could pitch all the tents at the same level. Some days they were in completely different areas. Like here, one is in the bush, the other is at this level, and wherever we could find flat land. But most of the times they used to be at like an incline like this or slightly tilted. So sleeping in it was a challenge, but again, a new experience. We did love our one non-tent day at Red's Meadows, where we actually got a nice cabin with bunk beds and nice normal beds. But interestingly, on that day, I couldn't sleep very well. Maybe I was not used to the comfort. So that's what happened. We did have to wash our clothes every few days, but at least we had some incredible scenery while we were washing, but all we could do is rinse because you're not allowed to use soap. We saw some incredible formations. So that was so cool. And we saw these squirrels and these little creatures, but the story with this squirrel is it stole my yellow spoon. And I don't know why she did that, but she kind of ran away with my yellow spoon, which I had rinsed and kept for drying. And I had to borrow a fork from Jay so that I could continue eating with something other than my hand. So that's what happened. Every day we had to spend about 1 to 1.5 hours filling up 12 liters of water between the three of us. So average, we realized we needed about 4 liters of water for all the stuff after you reach the campsite, plus about the 1.5 to 2 liters that you needed the next day. So that's how much we had to filter. The good news is the John Muir Trail does not have a lot of E. coli, or it does not have E. coli in the water, but there is a lot of particulate matter like algae or just twigs. And that's the reason why we decided to filter the water, so we didn't want to fall sick for any reason. But some places the water was actually pure enough to just drink it as is. We didn't, but it was that clear and pure. There was a place near Grouse Meadows where there were incredible blueberry shrubs, and this is what raw blueberries look like, but again, beautiful. We did have water crossings where we had to take off our shoes, put on our sandals, and then put our shoes back on again on the other end. But luckily, we had only one water crossing. If you go earlier in the June or July timeframe, there are many streams that are full and you have to wade through those, and that's why that is a harder time where you have a lot more water crossings. We saw some incredible streams. We were also getting inspired by seeing 12-year-olds who were doing the John Muir Trail. And look at the backpack on the little guy's back. It was as big as the one we had, but they were happily doing it. And we were inspired by their strength and courage. I mean, you oftentimes Don't encourage your kids to do certain things or discourage saying it might be too hard. This is an example of there are no limits in their mind. Let them do what they want and explore how far their strength will take them. So we saw some incredible views. This was at the top of Mount Whitney, just as the sun was beginning to show. We were sleeping in tents, two to a tent, and it was actually quite comfortable inside the tent. So we had a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag, and we used to typically sleep head to toe so that we were more comfortable, but there were times when we ended up kicking each other. This was the view at Guitar Lake. It actually looks like a guitar. So if you look at this at the top of the guitar, and this was the day we camped just before we climbed Whitney. There was a lot of camaraderie between Anu and Meenal because they were also sharing a tent. And being sisters-in-law, they had a lot of fun together, just chatting, doing girl talk and stuff like that. There was true happiness on reaching the destination. Look at the smiles on the faces when we reached Whitney Portal. And that was the last point that we're about a mile and a half before we reached Whitney Portal. We could see the cars and the road. And we never felt so happy on seeing the road and some automobiles, knowing that we didn't have to walk those extra miles and the car would take us to Lone Pine. So true happiness. We had a burger and fries after we got there. We just gulped the whole thing down. We were really hungry souls. And when we reached Jay's home in Sunnyvale, his family welcomed us. And it was really good to be back and really have a. It was an incredible experience that we finished with. So I guess that was the story of our John Muir Trail trek. Incredible time that we had with the group, with the amazing scenery, and what an experience. I kind of initial days, I figured out that I don't enjoy backpacking where you have to do a lot of these chores. But at the same time, if you want to experience scenery like this in the United States, then this is something you got to do. But again, something that if you want to try, really push yourself, I would highly encourage you to do that. For me and Anu, we are trying to figure out what's next. And again, this was August 2021. So let's see what we do next. Thanks. Bye.